Joseph Bello. I'm doing a video, short video on unit plan for the Popular Culture Project for both the 1970s and the 1980s. The goal of this is for students to learn history of the 1970s and the 1980s, okay? And do a presentation, okay? And there's also a written component, and I will explain that in a little bit. So number one, go ahead and focus out. These are the two students who are listening to me. You guys have any questions so far? Jennifer and Juan?
What are the two songs about again?
Oh, I'm gonna go ahead and explain that. Okay, so this is gonna be a unit. It's gonna be due in about a week. Okay, depending on the pace, but this is what I want you to do. We're gonna go ahead and do popular culture of both the 70s and the 80s. So what you're gonna be doing first, students, is you're gonna go ahead and do research of what's popular back in the 70s and in the 80s. And what do I mean by that? You need to do research on what's popular in the 70s. What are the movies they watched? What are the fashion? What did they wear? What are some of the gadgets? You know, what's popular back then? For example, also the songs, okay? I'm gonna make you do that. There's a component here where you have to evaluate songs of both the 70s and the 80s. So that's what you guys are gonna do. So the first thing you're gonna do is do research, okay? When you guys do research, this is what I expect. You guys need to at least write down facts, 20 to 25 facts, okay? You're gonna go on the internet and do research on facts about either, you're gonna choose the 1970s or the 1980s, okay? After you've written the facts, there's two things that I need you to do. You will create a poster, okay? The poster is gonna be 7 images, okay? With some bullet point explaining popular culture, either on the 70s or on the 80s, okay? Second, there's a written component. You're gonna go ahead and write a 1-page essay explaining popular culture of either the 70s or in the 80s. And then lastly, you're gonna go ahead and pick a couple of songs. What was popular back then in the 70s and the 80s? For example, the two songs. It could be, what's popular in the 70s? What do you guys think? You probably never heard of that. You may do, these are bands back in the 70s that I'm familiar with. Maybe Queen, Led Zeppelin, start of the punk rock, those are 70s. 80s, you might do a research on maybe Michael Jackson, or what else is popular in the 80s? There's a lot of 80s bands that are popular. You can just go ahead and do research. Culture Club, Duran Duran, those are fun things to do. Okay, that's the third component. Okay, so that is the goal for this project. I sort of made it a lot simpler because I don't have much time, but actually this takes about at least a good 2 or 3 days to present, but this is just a short version of it. Do you have any questions, students?
Would John Lennon be one of like the songs? Like, well, would he be one of the artists for the songs from the 70s and 80s?
That's a good question. John Lennon, if you would do your research, John Lennon is probably on the 60s, maybe on the 70s. He did a few songs in the 70s. You have to correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's part of your research, is maybe do what's popular back then. Okay, so you're going to do your research, and then John Lennon, I would guess he's probably part of the 70s. So this fits as far as the popular culture. Any other questions?
What about the films?
Films, that's a good idea. Oh my gosh, what are some of the films that was famous back in the 70s? I don't know if you have ever heard of a movie called Full Metal Jacket. There's this famous director back in the 70s, 80s named Stanley Kubrick. He did really good movies in the 70s and 80s. You guys should research that. Those were famous. Okay? So, to close it off, I want you guys to go ahead and do this project. I'm going to give you a worksheet, a guideline that's going to help you do this. Okay? So this is the second part of the project.